witness or statement?
Your Honor, we need to, we're going to need to use some of the media if I can start setting that up.
Yes, go ahead. Okay, so informally authorizing the possibility of going all the way to formal sentencing this week. Do you have the pre-sentence investigation report completed, as well as the TAP evaluation? But there is outstanding victim impact statements from Mr. Moreno and Mr. De La Serna, and I tasked you with telling them to get that into us by tomorrow.
Yes.
So once I receive those victim impact statements, then we can proceed to formal closed this week. For purposes of scheduling tomorrow, I want to start at 1 o'clock. We can work from 1 to 5 tomorrow. Wednesday, we can work 8:30 to 5:30. And I'm still not sure about Thursday, but I know Friday would be the same, 8:30 to 5:30 if we need all that time. Thursday is regularly my sentencing docket, so I'm not sure if I'm going to reset any of that. But let's get your witness on the stand. I believe it was Jason Castañon that was up for cross-examination. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Get him up here, please.
At some point during this punishment hearing, via email to the defense counsel.
You didn't send it to the court.
No, I did not send it to the court.
Okay.
Just so the court's aware. Probably something we'll discuss tomorrow.
Jason, what did you have regarding housekeeping?
Yeah, it's just, so Don was we were just talking about, I think where we left off, there was a body worn camera of the Moreno arrest. Exhibit 114, they were going to redact the audio as 114A. Those have been done and they're here. It will be using the exhibits as part of the cross.
So the original video with audio is 114,
Yes, sir.
and the redacted version is 114A.
Yes, sir. And
Are you offering those at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
we have no objection subject to the redaction as far as offering 114A for substantive evidence and 114 for the telegraph.
Yes, those are admitted for those purposes. Mr. Castañon, you were previously sworn the last time that you were here testifying. You remain under the same oath. Jason, let me know when you're ready.
Your Honor, Ms. Holguin will be conducting the cross-examination.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You have your license?
Yes. May I get?
No, I don't need to see it. I'll take it. Yes, you may proceed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Deputy. My name is Jasmine Holguin, and I'm just going to be asking you a few questions based on what you talked about 2 weeks ago with the prosecutors.
Sure.
Okay, so first, I want to talk about Mr. Moreno a little bit. When you were at Precinct 2, you were aware that Mr. Moreno was the training instructor of the precinct.
Yeah.
You asked me if I was aware?
Yeah, do you know?
I don't know. If he was, that was done before I got there.
So you wouldn't know if he was also the training coordinator?
That was done before I got there.
Well, you know that Mr. Moreno was terminated from his position.
Heard about it, yes.
I'm sorry?
Heard about it, yes.
Well, you testified on direct examination that you knew that he was terminated.
Yeah, heard about it.
Okay. You know that he was terminated because he was falsifying records on his TQL.
Heard about it, yes.
Well, were you aware that TQL required for Mr. Moreno to surrender his TQL training certificate?
I don't know. That's none of my concern. It wasn't any of my concern.
How important is TQL to a law enforcement officer?
Then people give us that's how we get our license. Very important.
Very important. Would you ever lie on your TCOL?
Would I? No. You
Would
can't
you?
lie. You can't lie on your TCOL. You do the training that's documented unless you're falsifying hours.
Would you ever falsify hours that you completed?
No.
You would agree that an officer who would falsify those hours is not trustworthy?
You're asking me if I agree?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if you're referring to Moreno. I don't know the details of it all. If that's what you're asking.
Well, let me ask you this. If TCOL were to say that an officer at your precinct falsified records, would you believe that officer to be trustworthy after TCOL made this determination?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
So I'll ask it again. What are you asking?
If an officer at your precinct was deemed to have falsified records by TCOL, would you believe that officer to be trustworthy?
If TCOL deemed that,
Yes.
I'd go to what TCOL says.
So you would agree that they're not trustworthy?
That's what TCOL says.
And you abide by TCOL, correct?
We all do.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you some questions about the main reason that the state asked you to be here, which is about the arrest of Mr. Moreno. You were made aware that there was a warrant out for Mr. Moreno's arrest in 2019.
Correct.
And it's correct to say that this isn't your first time serving a warrant?
That particular one?
Yes.
I don't think that was the first one, no.
Well, how many warrants had you served prior to that?
Maybe two. 1, 2.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness to show him what has been admitted as State's Exhibit 90?
Yes.
So Deputy, I'm showing you what has been admitted as State's 90. I'm going to be turning to page 4. Okay. Where it says respectfully submitted, that's not Constable Vela's signature there.
No.
So that,
Could you identify State's Exhibit 90, please?
Certified copy of the search warrant on Moreno that was submitted by you.
so that means that Constable Vela wasn't the one that submitted this to the judge. This arrest warrant, this affidavit.
I don't know who submitted it.
Well, the name's right there. Can you read it?
Captain Garcia. I know that as of right now when you told me. When I saw this.
But you served this warrant.
Yes.
So is it usual for you just to serve things without looking through it?
Well, I mean, if I'm called into the office and they tell me there's an arrest warrant, shouldn't we believe what they're handing us?
Well, yes, that's why I'm asking you to read that.
You asked me to read his name. I already said it twice.
Okay, and that's not Constable Vela's name?
No.
Okay, can you turn the page? Okay, can you read these two sentences out loud?
To any peace officer of any court with the state of Texas, you're hereby commanded to take the body of Leonicio Barrera Moreno.
And what is that we see at the bottom where it says signature of magistrate?
Bexar County, Texas.
Yes, what is that right here?
The signature of the magistrate.
And what does it mean when a magistrate judge signs this warrant of arrest?
That it's a valid warrant.
And what you read at the top would mean that any peace officer in Texas would have authority to serve it.
Correct.
There's nothing invalid about that.
No.
So that language that you read out loud is commanding you or any officer in Texas to arrest Moreno.
Correct.
And it's commanding you to do that whether you believe it's right or wrong.
Correct.
And there's nothing unusual by serving this warrant.
No.
serving a warrant is part of your day-to-day activities?
Could be, yes.
Well, it's something that you've done before. As a
Something that I've
deputy.
done before, but it's not every day. It's not day to day, and it's part of the job, yes.
Okay, it's part of your
Correct.
job as deputy.
Correct.
Now, you testified that you were told that Mr. Moreno might know martial arts.
Correct.
And you would agree that when you're arresting somebody, it's important to know if, you know, for example, they might have a gun.
Yes.
It's important information to share with that deputy who's arresting the
Mhm.
person.
Type of weapon, yes.
So after you arrested Mr. Moreno, you went to book him, and I want to walk a little bit through that. So you get inside the Sally Port and you park.
Correct.
And then eventually you put your weapons in the back of your vehicle.
Correct.
And one thing you said on direct examination is that Deputy Barloco had not completed the booking paperwork and that what he had completed was sloppy.
Correct.
And you also said that you knew that you couldn't take Mr. Moreno inside booking without that paperwork being correctly filled out.
You can, but that's not the preferred way. They want it done before they get there. You can do it.
Well,
When
what's
guys
your-
type their reports in there.
I'm sorry?
Guys type their reports in there.
What's your preferred way to take
My
it out?
preferred way? My preferred way is to have it done right, and if it's not, I'll do it inside if I have to.
So you said when that you're inside the Sally Port, you got a call from Lieutenant Minor.
Correct.
You don't get a call from Constable Vela.
She didn't call me, no.
I want to talk about Lieutenant Minor a little bit.
Sure.
You're aware that Lieutenant Minor did not like Mr. Moreno.
Am I aware? I don't know. You have to ask him.
Well, what if I told you he basically testified that when he came 2 weeks ago?
I wasn't here and I didn't hear about it, so I don't know.
Well, you're aware that Lieutenant Minor felt that Moreno was causing disruption at the office.
Okay.
Are you aware of that?
No.
So you weren't really aware of what was going on at your own workplace?
I'm not part of the administration, so the answer is no.
Well, Mr. Moreno wasn't part of the administration, so
Minor wasn't, you just said his name.
you also know that Lieutenant Minor was in charge of media connections.
I didn't know that, no.
Are you aware of what the administration does?
I'm aware that when we got to work, we were to get our stuff and leave. That's what I'm aware of.
And that's
I don't concern myself with what the administration does. I had my job to do and I did it.
okay, so you were,
Administration should worry about what administration does. They do what they do. We did what we did. Show up and go to work.
okay. And Deputy, I understand that you're close friends with Mr. Moreno, but just stick to yes and no to my
It's
question.
not close friends. We're friends.
Okay. So after this call, you leave the Sally Port.
Okay?
I'm sorry?
Okay.
Well, after Lieutenant Minor calls you, do you leave the Sally Port or not?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, as we talked, Your Honor, as we talked to the state about stipulating to some time stamps, I'm just going to be referring to that. So, Your Honor, we're going to be playing a portion of State's Exhibit 114.
A. 114A.
114. That, Mr. Goss, can you just stop it at 13:49:52?
I want to make sure I have the, is this the right video? Because there was like 4 or 5 videos on the thing.
No. Oh, yes, it is, yeah. It should be 3:32.
here?
Yes, can you pause it there? So what we're seeing is that after you get that call, you exit the Sally Port.
Right.
And it's correct to say that you weren't familiar with that booking area that well.
The booking area?
Yeah, like that entire area.
Not Southwark somewhat, but outside of that, no.
Okay, that's what I'm referring to, that area surrounding you.
correct.
Okay. You'd only been there a few times before.
Correct.
And on direct examination, you said that Lieutenant Minor had directed you to take Mr. Moreno to the flagpoles,
Correct.
but you weren't really sure where that was.
Correct.
You weren't given exact directions on how to get there.
Exact directions, no. Just flagpole.
Okay, so when you're exiting here, you're basically trying to find where that flagpole is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one-way, you can't. Yeah, it's one-way, yeah.
It's a one-way. And when you tried to exit on that first street, it was blocked off.
Correct.
So your only option was really just to keep going straight on the one-way.
No, west, yes.
And you keep driving, but you're not just driving to waste time, correct?
No, I'm trying to find the best way to get back to where I was.
And you're not just driving to have Mr. Moreno cruising around in the back.
No.
You're just lost.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that area, yes.
And at some point, you realize that your gun is still in the back of the vehicle.
Correct.
So you and Deputy Barloco go to retrieve your guns.
Correct.
And then you get your gun and then you continue to drive.
Correct.
You still don't know where you're going.
I know that I'm going to do a big square.
And eventually, when you're doing this square, you realize that you want to fill out that paperwork completely.
When I'm doing this square, no. I think I finished that paperwork when I'm in the back of the Sally Port. I think. I don't remember.
Okay, I'm going to play 135612. So what we're seeing here is you're filling out the paperwork. You're not in the Sally Port.
No. In
You're,
the back of it.
I'm sorry?
Behind it.
Okay, you're behind the Sally Port, but you're filling out the paperwork.
Correct.
Because as you stated, it's important to have it all filled out.
Well, I'm doing that paperwork and I am where I am because I was instructed to leave where I was.
Were you instructed to fill out this paperwork?
I was instructed to leave. What you see there, I was doing what I was ordered to do.
Okay.
So all these questions you're asking me, everything was what I was ordered to do.
And I'm not asking you if you yourself were doing this
Okay.
because of a direction or whatever. I'm just walking through the steps of what happened.
Well, am I redoing it? Yes, it's right there.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you scared that you're going to be blamed for what was going on that day?
I'm going to be blamed?
Yes.
Why would I be blamed?
Well, you're getting defensive about what I'm asking you, so I'm just...
No, I feel like these questions are leading up to something else. So I'm telling you, I was in the Sally Port, I was directed to leave. That's why I'm behind it right now. If I was never directed to leave, I'd still be in there. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay. And that's what I've walked through from the beginning. Lieutenant Minor called you to
Correct.
leave. You didn't do that on your own.
Correct.
Okay, and now I'm just walking through the steps of what happened. But I'm going to ask you, you were directed to do this, okay? So
Sure.
you were directed to fill out the paperwork correctly.
Well, I mean, that's something that comes with your job, filling paperwork correctly. You're asking me if I'm directed to do step by step what I'm doing. I'm telling you that I was directed to leave that Sally Port, which is why I'm no longer in there. If you want to know about the paperwork, it's right there. I'm doing it.
Okay, well, Deputy, I understand that you don't want to answer my questions, but you were doing great 2 weeks ago when you were asking me.
I'm gonna just argument it.
So I'm just asking you step by step of what happened.
Sure.
Okay, so as we can see on the video, you are filling out paperwork.
Sure.
Okay. And again, you start to drive off after this. Mr. Gossip, you can fast forward to this.
Sure.
So it should be at 14:06:19 when he drives off and going out. So at around 14:06:19, you can see that you complete filling out the paperwork and you start driving again. And when you start driving again, you're not parading Mr. Moreno around the back of your car, correct?
I'm not parading him. What do you? I don't understand.
Like you're not purposely just driving around with him in the back of your car.
No, that's why I parked right under that bridge. That bridge right there.
And you would agree that this entire delay is because of bad directions.
The entire delay is because of that phone call.
Well, you've been to the jail before, correct?
Which one? There was 40. We used to take him to 401 Frio. So this was at the time when this one kind of just opened up.
Okay, well, I'm talking about the one that you're here for today, this jail.
Have I been there? Yeah.
Yes.
You just said 2 or 3 times.
But you questioned which one, even though I asked you 2 or 3 times.
Say it again. I can't hear you.
Okay. You know that from the Sally Port to the flagpoles, it might be a minute drive.
Do I know? I didn't know that then.
But do you know now?
Yeah, I realized it after I think I saw them walk by it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that day, that entire drive took a little over 17 minutes.
Okay.
So you would agree that looking from the outside to what actually happened that day, or I guess, sorry, let me rephrase that. If someone were looking at you driving around for 17 minutes with Mr. Moreno in the back, they would believe that you're doing that on purpose, to waste time.
It's probably what they would believe, yes.
And they would believe that it's to delay his booking.
Would they believe? I don't know what they would believe.
But what we saw right now is that that 17-minute delay was just because you couldn't find where to go.
I knew where to go, I just had to get back there.
Well, you didn't know how to get there.
Correct.
Okay. So, on direct, you talked about kind of what happened the next day after this arrest, and you get to precinct 2, and you're questioned by the constable and lieutenant administration about, they say, what happened that day.
Correct.
And you stated on direct that you basically told them, well, Lieutenant Minor called me and told me to exit the Sally Port. And Lieutenant Minor acted like he didn't know what you were talking about.
You have to answer out loud, yes or no. For the
Yes.
person. Thank you.
Lieutenant Minor, so he was the one that called you that day, but the next day he acted like he didn't even know what you were talking about.
Correct.
Did you ever, or were you ever aware that an official with Bexar County Jail had told Lieutenant Minor to take Mr. Moreno to the front entrance?
The lieutenant of the jail saw me knocking on the back where the Sally Port was because I didn't know where I was going.
Right.
That's when he came out and he told me it's inside. That's what he did.
But I understand that, Deputy. What I'm asking is, before you got the call from Lieutenant Minor,
Correct.
or I guess when you got the call, were you aware that he had been instructed by a Bexar County jail official to take Mr. Moreno to the front? Did you know that?
I did not. I don't recall that, no.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with defenses? What's that?
31.
Okay, defenses 31.
Just double check. No, 30.
30. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
Okay, Deputy, I'm showing you with what has been pre-marked as Defense Exhibit 30, and you recognize this exhibit, or you recognize this photo.
Photo itself, no. I mean, the photo, no.
Well, the area.
Trying to see, yes, looks like kind of, I think it's a Joe.
Yes. So you recognize the area that's being photographed.
Yes.
And it's a fair and accurate depiction of that area?
Right here in front of the jail is blocked off, so it doesn't show like it's blocked off right now on this.
Okay, we can mark that up, but aside from that,
Yeah, yes.
Your Honor, defense offers Exhibit 30 in evidence.
There's a more accurate picture and discovery.
Just trying to show the jail, it's just a...
Okay, just the jail? Okay, I thought you were gonna do the whole pathway, and there's one that's already done.
We're gonna do the, just the general area, what's the back, what's the...
Okay, all right. No objection, Your Honor.
Defense 30 is admitted.
Your Honor, may I publish it to the witness? Okay, Deputy, so we're looking at the aerial map of the jail looking area. I know you said one of the streets was blocked off, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to draw just
Just have them come down and point out which one it was.
Okay, Deputy, can you go up to the map and show where you initially were in the Sally Port? It can be kind of just a general idea.
What are you doing with this? The court is very familiar with this area. The court knows when that street was blocked off. I am the finder of fact. Where are we going with this?
Yes, Your Honor, we're just going to establish the pathway that you took. This is my final questions.
That's it. One more, then you have to move on.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you want me to get up?
Yes, please, Deputy.
This is where I initially started right here.
Okay. And thank you, Deputy. Definitely that's it. Deputy, you remember when Constable Vela would take you and other deputies to eat on Fridays at Texas Roadhouse?
We've been to eat before, yes.
And you remember that she would pay for you guys?
Yes, she's paid first.
No further questions, Your Honor. You pass the witness.
I just have one question. Prior to the arrest, were you part of the briefing?
About the warrant?
Yes.
Yes.
And was Constable Bella present during that briefing?
I believe she was, yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No further questions from the defense, Your Honor.
This was a briefing to,
For the arrest of Moreno.
does anybody want to ask what happened at that briefing? This is
We
the first time hearing.
already covered it in the, well, I can continue if you like. So during the briefing, do you recall who gave the briefing?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember.
And do you recall what was stated?
I just remember we were told that there was a warrant. It was for Leo Moreno, and we were going to go and find him.
And were you given assignments of where you would head from the precinct?
Yes, broken up in teams.
Okay, and you were directed to go where?
Gold's Gym.
And did you know you were going to be the arresting officer at the point of the briefing, or until you got to Gold's Gym?
Yeah, not until I got to Gold's.
I see. And do you recall how many people were present at the briefing?
Not specifically. I mean,
Just a rough estimate, was it everybody?
if it wasn't everybody, it was just about everybody.
Okay, and that would entail approximately how many people?
I never knew the approximate staff. Could have been 14 approximate staff, but I'm not sure.
And from from the briefing, you went directly to Gold's Gym?
Correct.
And then we saw the body-worn cam that took it from there?
Correct.
Pass the witness.
Nothing further from the defense, Your Honor.
Can I give you an excuse?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. You may be excused. Who's your next witness?
Your Honor, this was the only witness you told us to have here today.
We are under that understanding as well, so we would.
But Oscar was not supposed to be here today. That's why I
Yeah,
still
so
did that.
that's right, because the hurricane judge, I ended up not going to.
That would have been nice to know if it was scheduled for.
I apologize, Judge, but we do have, I guess, a separate matter that we could address and to not waste any of the court's time.
Okay.
That would be the 3 separate broadcasts that were made, that were out and that I gave over to defense that we intended to use. Within those broadcasts, there are statements that are made by the defendant and also statements from the defendant's administration and employees. So at this time, the state would move to start introducing and admitting those for the court to watch.
Actually, to tell you the truth, I'm not prepared to argue it today.
What, have you seen them?
He sent them to me, but I haven't been able to look at them.
They weren't introducing guilt innocence?
No, sir.
And who is going to be the sponsoring witness? Well, you're not going to offer them for a witness, you just want to introduce them without a witness?
Correct. They speak for themselves.
Well, I don't know, there's probably all kinds of hearsay and other things. And I don't know that these statements are made while they're her employees or under their employees.
So I can describe them.
Why don't we take a recess, and Mr. Gomez, you can review them. You can go to the jury room if you want some privacy. Let's reconvene in 30 minutes. Do we make any progress on those? Have
Yes,
you
I
marked
have
those?
reviewed them, they weren't on.
I have not marked it.
You're on 117.
So 117, 118, 119.
They're all videos?
Yes.
Okay.
So I can describe them for the court. So State's Exhibit 117. Oh, may I sit or would you prefer me stand? Judge?
Whatever you prefer.
So State's Exhibit 117 is a KSAT broadcast from a reporter, Dylan Collier, regarding the delay in the magistration of Benicio Moreno, which was broadcast June 24th of 2019. Then we would introduce State's Exhibit 118, which is a News 4 broadcast of a press conference that was held outside the courthouse, outside the old courthouse over here. Individuals that speak in uniform, in constable uniform, is the defendant, Constable Michelle Vela, her captain, Mark Garcia, and Lieutenant Jeremy Minor, all speaking during the day in uniform, giving this press conference. And then the last video would
I'm
be-
sorry, Oscar, back up about what matter. What is this press conference about?
So the press conference addresses the grand jury summons regarding the Rodriguez Park incident. It addresses the arrest of Benicio Moreno. And the reason why the state's introducing State's Exhibit 117, which is the KSAT broadcast from Dylan Collier, is to show that the defendant references that in the news press conference. In State's Exhibit 118, it also goes to her state of mind with regard to not only the Rodriguez Park grand jury summons that was part of the state's case in chief, but also goes to what the punishment evidence is about the arrest of Leo Moreno and her statements regarding that incident. Then that leads us to State's Exhibit 119, which is a KENS 5 broadcast, and she gives an interview. The defendant, Michelle Barrientes Vela, gives an interview outside her precinct while Texas Rangers and FBI are executing a search warrant. She gives an interview that's about 12 or 14 minutes long. Standing with her is an attorney by the name of Mary Patriciak.
Peterson County?
Peterson. And so we would introduce that because in that statement, the defendant talks about the arrest, also urges that the district attorney, Joe Gonzalez, relook at the evidence and attempt to change his mind about the arrest. She also makes...
About the Moreno arrest?
Yes. Yes. And she acknowledges also, which would then lead us back to State's Exhibit, which was the one that Mark Garcia delivers a set of documents, which is about 90 pages and some CDs that the court, that we went through, that from her that she acknowledges that there was an attempt after the case against Leo Moreno had been dismissed, that there was an attempt after that from Mark Garcia to deliver documents to the district attorney's office to reconsider the filing of charges and the arrest of Leo Moreno.
State's Exhibit 100, which is Mark Garcia's 90 pages plus 2 CDs. I don't have that as admitted of guilt.
Correct. The court did not allow us to admit it because we could not at that time connect with the defendant, and that it was only Mark Garcia who attempted to deliver those documents. State can now show with these broadcasts and subsequent testimony when we get there, we will eventually call this also in this punishment hearing to show that she's aware that Mark Garcia is going to be delivering these documents, and that she also in these broadcasts, and in particular the press conference, which is 118 and 119, the interview outside the precinct during the search warrant execution that she wants Joe Gonzalez, the district attorney, to reconsider the evidence and acknowledges that. I think in one of the interviews she says he has the documents there in his office or on his desk or something like that.
Response?
Well, as to the first one, the case act, that's basically just Dylan Collier talking, which is all you're saying. And honestly, it's incredibly prejudicial for her to have Mr. Collier's statements about what he believes the evidence is showing played in front of the court.
Well, if this broadcast is from 6/24/19, isn't that around the same time as the subpoenas were delivered or the search of the offices happened? I know the grand jury subpoenas were definitely out.
Yes, I think the point of the broadcast was the Moreno arrest, and Mr. Collier describing how long the officers took to go various places, pointing it out on the map. But those don't even contain any statements from her, except I guess there's Steve Spriester says to Dylan Collier, or says that Dylan got an email from Michelle Vela and then put some words on the screen that's purportedly from her, but they're like 3 times removed on a trying to do a self-authenticated video to even show that that's her statement.
What about her press conference, States Exhibit 118?
Well, so in the press conference, this is like a 50-minute long video, and in that, there is nothing on the face of the video that shows that it's from a broadcast, right? I think they supplied something else that it may have gone out on Facebook, it may not have. But none of these things were told to us or given to us as notice under 3707 to be even played in the punishment. And I keep saying this because it's important, is that we have to have that notice. The whole reason for that notice is so that we can consider plea bargains beforehand. We can consider what's coming into punishment so that we can know how to advise our client about where we need to be and where, what time. None of that was given under any 404B or 3707. It wasn't said we're going to use this for this, this, and this. And apparently they just thought of it because they just emailed us a couple of days ago while we're in the middle of this punishment hearing that they're going to play these things. And so for us to defend, we haven't even put on a case yet. So they're saying basically that they are, I guess, maybe offering it to rebut something. I'm not sure because we haven't put on a case for them to rebut yet. So they're rebutting their own witnesses who said something they didn't like them to say, or they're trying to backdoor DeMar Garcia stuff because they know that they cannot call Captain Garcia, that we have a right to cross-examine him. And so as far as her statements, they have to provide, they did not provide her statements with telling us that they are intending to use it under 3707. The case law is clear. It has to go with, the intent has to come with what they provide. It can't just give you, in this case, they've given us thousands of documents and thousands of different things. They have to tell us something about where they're going to use it. And they never have told us. And every time I've said it, they haven't disagreed with me because they know that they haven't. And so on both of those next exhibits, we just haven't been provided with any adequate notice. In addition to it, I don't believe that they're self-authenticated because on the face of it, it doesn't show that they were ever part of the broadcast. The first one does, but
the case that sounds like
that one does. I'll agree with that, but that's just rank hearsay.
Yeah.
All the way through. But the next two do not. They're just, it looks more like raw interview footage.
So the Ken's 5 one, when I emailed Mr. Gossen, defense counsels, I had a link for the Ken's 5 one, which has an article, and within that article is the interview on that article. Also, go to the notice argument. Part of our notice from the 404 and 3707 was that we would notice that we were proving up these cases in punishment. These statements go to her consciousness of guilt. It also goes to her knowledge about the arrest. It goes to the identity that she is actually the person that was aware of what was going on. Also, when we get to the press conference, one of the things I provided was a link that shows that there was a live stream from the News 4 San Antonio, which showed the press conference on their Facebook feed. And again, these are all statements that were made by the defendant or agents of the defendant.
Well,
And they were non-custodial.
And I will say in the second one that we were talking about with the 50-minute press conference, there are statements by Mark Garcia made there, which, again, I mean, that is, you don't have any right to cross-examine him on those statements that he makes. And so, and then anything that Lieutenant Meyer or anybody else says is hearsay as well.
And so under 801,
Well, hang on, let's say with 3707, did you give them notice of your intent to use those videos of punishment? And if so, what is the extraneous crime or offense that you're trying to prove beyond a reasonable doubt?
so the crimes that we're trying to prove beyond a reasonable doubt is the act of perjury and the official oppression, which would be the arrest of Leo Moreno. We gave notice that we would be proving up those cases. We did not provide them those particular statements, those particular broadcasts, but those are out in the public domain. They were made by the defendant.
Right. So what do these broadcasts prove?
Okay, so first I'll go to the first one, the Dylan Collier, the KSAT one, which is Exhibit 117. So the fact that that broadcast happens June 24th is relevant because, as the court is aware, at this time she's already been served with grand jury summons regarding Rodriguez Park. She is now aware, based on this broadcast, that the news media is looking into how long it took for Leo Moreno to be magistrated, right? So then that then leads her to give the press conference on June 25th. Subsequently, I'll let the court know, obviously, is that we will be introducing evidence through Les Canowitz, which I apologize if I get his name incorrect, Les, that a absence of business records was signed by Mark Garcia in front of the defendant. And as the court is aware, she's the ultimate custodian because she was the elected official of this precinct, of the constable's office. And that absence of business records establishes that, according to the constable's office, there were no body cams or dash cams or any media evidence related to the arrest of Leo Moreno from the constable's office. We know that to not be the case. And so that leads us to why was that not turned over? Why was there an absence of business records filed?
But if Mark Garcia signed that, how is that aggravated perjury as to her?
Because she is aware that he signed that.
Okay, what else?
Oh, well, as far as we go back to the ag perjury, why would we introduce these in regards to the ag perjury and how we can prove it should be on reasonable doubt? The fact
Those were dismissed, I thought. The aggravated perjury.
against her, yeah, to be used in punishment. That we would prove up the case in punishment. Strategically, the state decided to go on the tampering case over the aggravated perjury case.
Because it couldn't prove it.
We'll prove it now. That's what we're going to do. I'm saying the
But
reason
they were
so.
dismissed, so there's no live pleading on an aggravated perjury, right?
But that does, we're proving up a bad act. They're
Okay.
part of the 3707, and also,
Which requires notice under 37.
in which we did give notice that we would be proving up this aggravated perjury. And also, when we filed the dismissal on that case, we stated that we'd be.
So far what I'm hearing is that the case that broadcast doesn't prove the aggravated perjury, though.
No, it goes to her state of mind, that broadcast happened, and then she references that in the State's Exhibit 118, that there's a certain reporter, a certain station looking into the delay of the magistration and the
So
Rodriguez Park.
let's move on to number 118, the video of the News 4 press conference. You're saying it was not a broadcast?
Well, I understand what Oscar's saying, but it's not on the face of it. On the face of the video, it looks like raw footage. It's only if you can kind of like combine it, or maybe like click on I never clicked on the links again, but I'll assume what he's saying is true. click in it, maybe that you can, it's part of an article, and then you click on it and you can watch the whole thing. But I really, I mean, we define what a broadcast is, and it's getting to the point that I think you need to have somebody's interviewing it, and I think you need to have that person come testify about it, so we can cross-examine them on it.
Is there a custodian of records that's available to prove up the press conference from News 4?
No, but the Code of Criminal Procedure allows for these broadcasts, these statements to be self-authenticated. So no, we don't have a custodian of records at this moment to testify to the authenticity of that. But as far as...
But does the Code of Criminal Procedure say that they also are not entitled to confront any custodian of records as to whether or not it's
So the authenticity of her own statement?
the authenticity of the item of evidence. So if you have a broadcast, that's the item of evidence. Somebody has to bring it in and say this was what the broadcast was. They don't get to pick and choose who does that. They just get to cross-examine whoever does bring it.
No, the Code of Criminal Procedure allows for that piece of evidence to be self-authenticating as far as...
It's just authentication. It doesn't overcome any hearsay or confrontation.
And so the argument from the state would be within its contents. If the defense were to object to hearsay, obviously we would have to respond to each hearsay objection, but it is her own statement. It's not hearsay. And then as far as statements from Mark Garcia and Lieutenant Minor, those also don't qualify as hearsay because they were made by the party's agent, which was Constable Vela's or the defendant's employee on a matter within the scope of that relationship while it existed. So those individuals, Mark Garcia and Lieutenant Minor, are in full uniform along with the constable, with the defendant, speaking about the arrest of Leo Moreno and Rodriguez Park. So matters that were within the scope of their employment.
I could see how 118, if properly authenticated, would be relevant. I'm still not there on 117, so I'll withhold a ruling on all of these until you continue with your case state. What about 119?
So 118, just to clear that up for the record and for Jason, 118 is the actual press conference that was given on June 25th outside the courthouse steps. It's about 54 some odd minutes long. Ken's 5 Facebook statement, which is State's Exhibit 119, is where she is outside the precinct office and the Texas Rangers are executing a search warrant along with the FBI, and she gives about a 12-minute statement. That one is part of an article. Within that article, you can click on it. As opposed to 118, it comes off of News 4's Facebook page that they were streaming.
So you're saying 118 was like a Facebook Live of News 4?
Correct.
Of the press conference outside of the courthouse steps?
Correct. Yes.
And Ken's 5?
119 is a part of an article, and within that article, there's a video that you can click on. So that is her statement.
Well, in 119, in addition to the other notice requirements, they didn't even give that to us till last week. We didn't even get a discovery call. So 118 we had in discovery. 119 we did not at all. Which is just, I mean, the rules are there so that I don't get ambushed when stuff like this happens. And I mean, it just feels constantly like an ambush throughout this trial. And, going back to 118, Lieutenant Minor, as we all talked about, is like gone and can't come back. And so they didn't tell us about this video. They want to put Lieutenant Minor's statements. They could have told us about it before, and I could have cross-examined him. But now he's gone to wherever, and apparently it takes weeks and weeks of time for me to get him back, and I had planned not to have him back because I didn't know about this.
And I could redact Lieutenant Minor's statement, I could redact Mark Garcia's statement, and only enter in the statements that come from the defendant.
All right, well, I will take all of these under advisement. I'm not going to make a ruling today. State, I'm going to, from here on out, we're so close to the finish line, but from here on out, I'm just not going to entertain any last-minute submission to the defense to here's more new stuff that we haven't told you about, and here it is. Like, you should have already done this. I'm not going to rule on the admissibility of any of these. I'm going to let you continue with your case. So if you can just give me an overview state, tell me who you're going to call tomorrow, and what is the purpose of calling them. I'd like to see if there's any way we can trim any of this.
We have narrowed down, we're having, like, for instance, there's a video of the recovery of the defendant's official vehicle. So we've narrowed it down. When 3 people would have testified before, now we just have 1. Even though he's not the one who was wearing the body-worn cam, actually we're going to use a cruiser video. It's not his cruiser, but he can identify what's in it. So we are doing that sort of thing. We have 5 people tomorrow. We're going to have Manny Gonzalez from HR will be testifying. He will be factually testifying to the welfare check and the phone call that preceded it, so that he can clarify what was actually said to the defendant, which was not at all what was later represented in the warrant. He's also going to speak to some other Precinct 2 issues and EEOC law. We have Christopher McKinney, who is going to talk about EEOC law.
Why do I need to know that? Wasn't that claim already settled?
Actually, because the warrant relied on a statement that was within EEOC complaint, I feel
the arrest warrant of Moreno?
correct. It was based on a statement that came from his EEOC complaint, and they said he lied in the EEOC complaint. It's important for you to know the law regarding that, because it's a federally protected activity. And even if somebody lies in the EEOC complaint, under these circumstances, you cannot make it as a basis for retaliating against an employee. And this is the ultimate retaliation, is arresting someone.
Can you just give me the statute and I can read it? I am pretty confident I could understand it, and we could do away with McKinney, because, yes, I agree, EEOC complaints are confidential.
So I'm having all the witnesses, since we will not begin again until tomorrow at 1, and all the witnesses were going to be here at 10. I'm going to meet with all of them in the morning, and I'll see if I can't narrow that down. We're also going to have the one Texas Ranger that's going to come, and we'll get that video in demonstrating that the defendant lied when she told Ranger Freeman at the precinct when that warrant was being executed that her vehicle wasn't there because a tire had been slashed and it was flat, and we'll demonstrate that's not true. We're also going to bring in the public information officer, Johnny Garcia, who's a Bexar County Sheriff's deputy, and he will be talking about what occurred on the day of the arrest, and that he did not tell them to leave the Sally Port.
I mean, that's already established.
No, they said that they're trying to imply that, and in those videos as well, those news broadcast videos, the defendant was stating that it was the public information officer that directed them to leave the Sally Port, and then which ultimately caused a delay in the arrest. That is not what happened, and he will testify.
But Castañón testified that Jeremy is the one who called him and told him to leave.
However,
Your Honor, we want that witness because it's our contention. We're going to show you that that's exactly what that guy said, is to go around to the front. And
So Johnny Garcia was the one who said go around to the front?
from the sheriff's office.
however, he was not made aware that they were already in the Sally Port, and then later they made implication in the media that it was he who told them to leave the Sally Port. He never said to do that. He didn't even know they were in there.
He just told them to go around the front.
Because that's how a perp walk is, and he spoke directly to the defendant, and she's the one that said to him, I want a perp walk. And I think that goes to the harassment and the further embarrassment that they wanted to place Moreno under. So I think his testimony is important. So Billy, that's the 5 that will be for tomorrow.
Well, bring 2 more because I don't see how I need to hear from McKinney on EEOC complaints. That's something I can take judicial notice of.
And we agree with that. It's just, if they are going to posit that somebody who lies in an EEOC complaint is a need for prosecution for perjury, then we want to be able to explore that with whoever witness they're trying to do that with. Because that's basically what they're saying, is that an EEOC complaint can't be prosecuted. If you lie in it, then there's no possible way that if somebody said that, Jason Goss made him X, Y, Z and everything else, and it's a proven lie, that there's no consequence for it because the EEOC is so sacrosanct that nobody can ever prosecute. And if that's what they're saying, then we would like to at least cross-examine that person who's saying that. As far as the judge saying judicial is the law, I mean, of course you can do that. I just don't believe it's even true. I don't believe it's true that you can't prosecute somebody for lying if they lie. But if they're going to say that, I think that's important to recognize.
But what extraneous act are you trying to prove? Like the search warrant is already in, the arrest warrant is already in. I've already, you've already published the videos of the arrest of Moreno. Clearly, it looks like it was wrong.
Well, if you're representing to me right now that you believe we've reached our burden on our aggravated perjury, then there are people I don't need to bring. But I am just trying to make sure that I reach our burden of proof on all of this.
But the aggravated perjury as to what? Because I don't have the indictment that you dismissed.
The aggravated perjury is that they lied in the arrest of Moreno based on him stating in an EEOC complaint that he was hazed.
I understand, and that's a Mark Garcia issue.
No, it's not. It's done in her direction. She has knowledge of everything. That's why we're trying to demonstrate to you, based on the facts and circumstances, that this was not done in a vacuum by Mark Garcia. Just because he's the one that's the affiant on the warrant doesn't make him and him alone responsible for it.
That's their problem.
So tell me who is going to come in and say it wasn't Mark Garcia, it was really the constable?
Actually, circumstantially, Leslie Campbell is going to demonstrate that she was present when all of these records, when all of these things were done. Additionally, we're going to demonstrate that Johnny Garcia can tell you that she absolutely knew about the arrest and doing the perp walk in order to further, and it was a further harassment of the defendant that later on she represents through the news media that it was the sheriff's department that directed them to do that. They didn't have anything to do with that, and that is not true. They had everything to do with it. She orchestrated that. She made them leave the Sally Port in order to go and come back around again until the press showed up so that he could be further embarrassed in front of the jail. So these are all done in not, it's not just because he's the affiant that he's solely responsible. That's not how it works. Things are done in other people's direction.
Well,
And we're demonstrating that knowledge.
The fact that the state of Texas believes that perp walks are harassment is shocking to me, as many as they participate in.
That is not true. We did not call the press. Her own lawyer called the press. We were very discreet. And for anybody to believe otherwise is wrong.
I'm just talking about the nightly news. I see a perp walk every night on the news, and now it's like harassing, terrible, awful thing to do. I think that the court's main question is they will not have a witness that shows that anything, that the perjury of those statements were made by Mark Garcia in her direction. The only witness they could have do that would be Mark Garcia. He refused to do that, and that's why they're in a position where they dismiss the perjury cases.
We dismissed
So
the
it is important to me to know
what was the constable's knowledge about all of this. But I really just need you guys to get to the point with all these witnesses. So bring the witnesses that can establish that. As far as an EEOC complaint, like I can read up from now until then. Just tell me what you want me to consider. I can take judicial notice. I don't understand, Jason, that they're trying, at least I'm not hearing, that they're trying to say that anyone who makes a false statement on an EEOC complaint can never be prosecuted. I don't see that.
I think that's what their expert would testify to, is that even false statements cannot be ever prosecuted.
No, he isn't going to testify to that. He's going to demonstrate to you that a false statement cannot be retaliated
Right,
against.
I heard that, and I understand that.
And that it's just an opinion. And the whole concept behind EEOC law is that there would be a chilling effect if there's a retaliatory
And I
act.
get that, and I understand that law, and I don't think I need to hear from that witness, but I've told you what's the most important to me. If you're going to bring me evidence that the constable had knowledge or orchestrated, was in charge of, instructed witnesses to go and execute this false arrest, that's what's right now at the forefront. So I want the witnesses that are going to get to that quickly. I don't need to hear from EEOC. And I'll give you a little bit of leeway. I'm giving you guys a lot of room with this case, but I need to get to the end because I still have other cases I have to get to.
Well, and then the next day, we do have the DPS regulatory attorney who will talk about the unlicensed securities for reserve and full-time, when you can and can't do that. And then we have Judge Vasquez, who's the JP2 judge, and his clerk, who is also the custodian of records. There were 93 warrants that were...
Judge Vasquez is going to come testify?
Yes.
His judicial canons allow him to do that?
Yes, he's a witness, yes.
Understand.
And there were 93 warrants that were improperly executed, and she was directed not to do it, and we will talk about that. And then we also have Constable Vasquez to come in to talk about the condition and the financial condition and the work that was left behind that didn't get executed properly when she took over.
I don't think I need to hear that. I mean, I
But
think it's a given.
That's part of our 30, well, are you telling me that you agree?
I mean, you
that
guys
that's
put it
correct?
out there in guilt innocence that people were, in fact, O'Neill testified they were made to shred some documents.
Well, herein lies my
Did nobody
problem.
do what they were, and they don't have any
I got
idea
that
what they
too.
were?
I got that too.
Well, Your Honor, herein lies our position is that we don't know where you stand on sufficiency of the evidence and which things that you're going to find we met our burden. So we have to meet that burden by putting on witnesses. I can't read your mind, so I need to, unless you tell me that, yes, we've met our burden, sure.
Well, I can tell you I catch on pretty quickly, so get to the witnesses and get to it quickly. And then defense, so is that it? The constable is your last person?
So we have 10 more to go.
Well, no, we went through 5, and then you mentioned Judge Vasquez and the constable. Who else?
The DPS,
Right,
we have Les,
right.
and then we have the custodian records Renee Garza, as well as Judge Vasquez.
Right. Okay, so we should wrap this up, your part by Wednesday,
Yes.
and then tell me how many you have.
5.
And how long do you need?
5 hours, I think. Maybe more with their cross-examination, but I think 5 hours is important.
So can you have some of your witnesses available Wednesday afternoon?
Told them to be ready Wednesday morning.
It sounds like they're gonna spill into Wednesday morning. I won't call your case until Wednesday afternoon. So have your witnesses here, even if we're still finalizing some of theirs, please have some of yours ready. Wednesday is really the one day we could go the whole day. And then that's it. We're gonna be ready for formal sentencing when you're done. You'll have your arguments ready to go both sides.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's reconvene tomorrow. We'll work from 1 to 5. Wednesday will be 8:30 to 5:30.
Thursday, we'll do 1 to 5 again, just because I have some sentencing hearings I have to conduct. And then Friday, all day if we need to. All right, thank you all. I will take the 117 through 119 under advisement.
Courtney, I just put them up in the front.
They're marked, so go ahead and leave them with you.